Footy and frothies as we head towards Spoon Bowl. And then the finals afterwards. A magnificent day in Western Sydney from the Grey Gums Hotel. No wind. It'll be 24 degrees. Magnificent day to be out drinking beers. And luckily enough, I've got Danaan and GT with me to do so, as well as talk some rugby league action. What's happening, boys?
Yeah, not a hell of a lot. Got the week off work and enjoying a week to just kind of rest, relax, not do a hell of a lot, which is much needed at this point in time.
Very good. And you?
Mentally preparing myself for Friday.
For the fallout?
For the fallout.
I wanted to do a show devoted solely to the Spoon Bowl, but it seems I've been overruled. We'll save it for a grand final or something. Anyway, you ready?
Ready as we can be.
How will you? We'll save the para chat till we get to that game. Actually, I think the way we're headed, we're going to try and get everything packaged into one show. If not, there'll be two. You'll know by the time you're hearing this. I'll run through some news quickly. Then, anything else you want to talk about before you? How'd your tips go on the weekend?
I was 5 out of
Sunny, so neither of you know who I'm talking to. Do you?
I was 5 out of 6 after Saturday.
Yeah, were you? Wow.
Yeah, and then got both wrong. I did go a few upsets throughout the round. But, I don't think many people would have tipped the Raiders.
No.
And I tried another upset in the Knights game, which didn't pay off, unlike the other ones.
My tipping was absolutely atrocious. I ended up with 3.
Yeah, I was about the same. I was so proud of myself tipping Parramatta, and so did everyone else, apparently. So, shows where everyone thinks the Dragons are at. Going to give congratulations to Callan, who won Supercoach, the Frothies A-League Supercoach. You know, a slightly come from behind victory.
I demand a recount.
What, did you lose by 200?
Yeah, something like that.
And kudos to Barney, who scored top 1%. Was it on Saturday as well?
Yeah, 618th or something overall for the round.
Yeah, jumped up a bunch of spots. So, well done to him. There must be something to saving your trades. Yeah, I don't buy it, but whatever. So, congratulations to all of those. The overall winner next week in the. I think it's pretty close, actually, the top of the actual Frothies group. But I'll have a look at that next week as JT pulls it up.
Yeah.
And I guess the story of last round, we'll look back quickly on round 26, is that everyone that sort of had a chance to hammer home an opportunity shat the bed, more or less, really, right across the round. Dragons cost themselves a top 8. Sharks cost themselves a top 2. Roosters cost themselves a top 2. So on and so forth. It's some interesting fallout from it all. I don't know what we take from it all, whether it's just a bunch of shit that happened, which is my first inkling. But, any big takeaways before I run through the rest of the news?
Well, I'm sure we're going to chat about it, but I think the Roosters' premiership chances are gone. Mm-hmm. That was probably the biggest talking point of the week. The Warriors upset, I tipped. I think that was more the emotion of Johnson, and that's pretty much why I tipped it. Knowing it was Sean Johnson's last game, it was their last game of the season with the bye this week. If it wasn't that situation, I don't think they have that win that they did. So I don't think it's the end of the world for the Sharks, all things considering. They probably now finish third, stay in Sydney.
Play Penrith potentially now.
Play Penrith, yeah. So obviously the Melbourne would be, you would assume Melbourne win round 1 of the finals. So they would have to travel down there, but I can at least see them not going out in straight sets like seasons before. The way that the top 8 is still alive with a game to go. Mm-hmm. Mathematically, there are 4 teams.
Also, there's plenty to play for this week.
Yeah.
Every game means something, even the infamous Spoon Bowl, which is sold out. And actually, speaking of sold out, this was the highest grossing attendance round in National Rugby League history, I believe. Wow. It was over 247,000. I did have the stats, but I didn't write them down. It beat the previous record of not long ago, but I believe most games are sold out. Like aside from all we whinge and Dane and I spent plenty of time whinging about some facets here. NRL, you've got to say the NRL's flying. I don't know what it is. It's whether they do have a great product. They just like to self-sabotage. But whether it's, we're finally a couple of years out of COVID and Everyone is enjoying themselves again, whether it's good weather, whether it's the fact every game means something. Including, even Wests, they're on target for their third straight spoon. They've sold out the last 4 home games. Quite incredible.
Pricing definitely helps. It seems like the prices of tickets aren't as exorbitant as they have been for recent years too.
Yes and no, yeah. Sometimes I've looked at taking the kids and still looking at a couple $100, but yeah, and you're doing better. Memberships up across everyone. Members are turning up, so great signs. A lot of clubs doing really well. Not great signs though for the Roosters, as you mentioned. Sam Walker, Brandon Smith, both ACLs. So not just finals, but they're now looking at realistically half of next year out as well.
So NRL Physio, I believe it was his account, said at least round 10.
Next year, yeah.
Next year for those two.
So
Radley could be pre-season with the broken shoulder.
Broken shoulder.
Yep.
Clavicle or something?
Yeah.
Yep, that was a club.
But, yeah, that's pretty big, especially for Walker, who I think most would agree is next in line for the Queensland halfback. If Cherry Evans potentially pulled the pin next year, which you could see happening, he's mid-30s?
If they win the comp, I reckon he does.
I'm just saying.
Cool.
I'm more saying just
from an Origin point of view.
The Origin side of you, just saying I'm done with Origin.
Yeah,
I'm going to give the last season or two.
It opens the door for Dearden, really, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, but you would argue that it would have been Walker.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
With on recent form.
There's someone else obvious who I'm not thinking of.
Not as a 7.
Or maybe I'm thinking of Dearden.
Because Ezra Mam's your 6.
Yeah, 6.
Jamal Fogarty.
Fogarty's played, been there, done that.
Probably
the other one in line. He's played good footy since he got back, but it's a long way away. Yeah. But yes, you're right. In short, yes, and probably next in line for the Broncos jersey if you wanted it.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is more realistic.
But even Brandon, he, since that in-house suspension, has been a different player. Good chance he was going to represent New Zealand at the end of the year. That's now out the window as well. At 4th time in 4 years, I believe. The Roosters have had 2 ACLs in the one game.
Yes, I did see the list, yeah.
So they've had 12 in total, and 8 have occurred across
in the same game, yeah.
A 4-game period. So talk about shit luck.
I'm just trying to think. Out that Allianz Stadium surface isn't great. I don't know if you can really
I don't think you can blame that, though.
And obviously not for the previous years, can you?
As someone that's done it plenty of times.
Sometimes it just happens.
Sometimes, and that's the Walker one. And then the Elliott Whitehead on Brandon Smith tackle, I think that's completely accidental. Yes, it's still a hip drop.
I didn't think there was any malice in it.
Yeah. Yes, it's a hip drop. Yes, he should be getting a lengthy suspension for it, but I don't to come out and say it's an intentional or it's something he's known for. I think it was awkward would be the best word to describe the tackle. Smith kind of got in and out from underneath him. And I think this is the result of many injuries that we see now that they didn't have 20, 30 years ago, like the syndesmosis injuries and stuff like that. Players are just 110, 20 kilos now.
Yes.
Compared to what a prop back in the 90s was 100.
Well, I remember going back 10 years when Benji had the period where he was always injured, and Steve Roach talked about how the problem is the players are also so finely tuned. There is no give in their bodies.
No,
they're built like elastic bands now. That
they're not. It's almost like they're no more footy players. They're machines.
Whereas back then he never had hamstring injury because he didn't carry. His hamstrings were just like ours, I suppose. So there isn't ish. I do squat. So they
the toilet doesn't count.
They also lost Nat Butcher. I haven't seen the fallout of that yet. Do you think there is, as this wind's very annoying, I'm sorry about that, it may just come right up this tunnel. They had... Is that the end of their season?
Yeah. To lose 2 spine players a week before the finals. And as we already mentioned, like how well Walker's been playing. In saying that, there's not many teams right now that if you took 2 of their spine players out, you
wouldn't be in the same situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
just make sure that is a red
like
button.
Cleary,
There we are recording. Good.
Penrith, perfect example. Say if Cleary and Edwards are ruled out for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Storm, Hughes, and Grant. You know, you
of course.
you're putting the pen through.
I'm not singling out any team.
Just they're the top two. And if they lose those two players, you're saying season over.
We're also heading towards a world where next year they're looking at starting with potentially Chad Townsend as the first choice halfback. I know Sanders Smith's there.
Great signing now, isn't it?
I assume. I didn't expect that though. I assume Sanders Smith, if he has a decent run into the finals, probably can cement himself an opportunity now. You can never have your time over, but they probably wouldn't mind begging Click Keary to stick around a little bit more now, but can't change your past.
I'm already looking at Watson for Supercoach next year.
Looking forward to previewing that. There's some very interesting Supercoach stuff coming up on the horizon that has caught Lure for Supercoach all of a sudden. You've seen what he does, first choice 7. He's going to be overpriced on the back of his Penrith run. Ice going to Penrith, introduce Smith. There's lots of Supercoach stuff to talk about, but there's also lots more to talk about. Tommy and Jason Saber this week for Manly. They reckon they'll be okay.
Back for finals.
And Puppy from Melbourne, bone bruising. I think they're resting him this week.
Just back on the turbo.
It wasn't resting. It was.
Well, he's sitting out this week, but they think he'll be okay.
With turbo, it's off-season surgery or something. Like the way I heard.
Oh, okay, right.
It's like
they'll needle him up to get him through the finals.
Shoulder, needle it up. By the simple fact he said it can't get any worse.
Yep.
Makes me think it
usually
is
shoulder.
It's pretty bad.
It means it's numb it up while it's to play. Can't aggravate it any worse than what it is. And surgery the second they're knocked out would be my assumption. So he won't be playing for Australia.
No, he won't. You know who will be playing for Australia, I reckon? Watch him name James. Mal's pretty loyal. Watch James Tedesco be the Australian number 1.
I can see that because Dylan Edwards is playing injured.
There is that too, so easy way out for him to leave him out. Anyway.
I think Penrith take that out of his hand.
I would too if I was Penrith. I don't think he'd be playing now if Keary was fit.
Yes.
Stags, Piacora miss out. Rapana and Whitehead have both played their last games for the Raiders. Both tremendous servants, but move on to their next chapter.
T is so mad about Rapana being gone too.
I've heard that. And judiciary news, obviously, we met Whitehead's a result of his hip drop. Kafusi got off. He's free to play this week. Willison will miss out this week, as will Bronson Sherry. And that's about it. Signing news, Royce Hunt has signed with the Tigers for 3 years. Article day in the Sydney Morning Herald suggests the discussion was Corey Horsburgh will be joining him because they've spoken about their issues a few years ago and are at peace with that. But, I'll get your thoughts. You know better than me. Royce Hunt?
I would have been doing a lot more to try and hold on to him. I think in terms of our front rowers, he's been one of the better performing ones. There's a list of probably 2 others that I would have rather see go before him. But we're not short on a world-class prop coming into the side next year. So
exactly. Hazleton's still on the ascent.
Yeah.
If you're a Sharks fan, I don't think you really lose that much sleep over it.
Yeah, hopefully Hamlin Ueli especially gets a good off-season into him and comes back a bit fitter and digs in a little bit more than he has done this year. He's been fairly disappointing, but I think it'll be a loss, but it's a loss that'll be covered by bringing in AFB.
It's interesting that it's from social media almost universally praised signing. I can't recall one the Tigers have made.
Yeah,
when everyone hasn't carried on.
Do we know what he's on?
That would be the only downside to it. Again, with the reason potentially why the Sharks let him go is he the only one that's
too much money?
Not so much money. Is he the only one that they haven't re-signed?
Yeah.
Therefore, easiest option to let go because they've got someone coming in.
Yeah. Well, I think because that AFB thing happened so randomly.
Yeah.
That they've just gone, okay, we need to get that bedded down, and someone had to get spit out the other end.
That's it. We've still got we've now got 5 can't fit into 4, and we've got, like every other side, we've got 1 or 2 good kids coming through.
Only problem I've got is we're one real quality prop short.
And that's the issue. I think out of the ones you've got there at the moment, he's the perfect 1-2 impact.
Yeah.
Well, he did a lot. Even this weekend, he changed a lot of the dynamic of that game when he came on. And he's a good line bending forward, which Tigers need. They've got Pole, they don't have many others, and I think he's an astute signing, really, more than anything else.
His biggest challenge is going to be going from starting some weeks, benching others, to he's going to be a starting prop for all 24 games next year, most likely, for the Tigers.
Yeah, I think what plays out with Clemmer, which I don't think's done and dusted yet, will be the interesting thing. And
You don't sign him to put him on the bench for Clemmer.
No, that's right. And, yeah, so interesting to see how that plays out, whether Fanua starts. You know, there's a few other bits and bobs there. A whole pre-season to worry about all that stuff. Anything else caught your eye, or we get into...
James Maloney got sacked.
Oh, he did get sacked. Yes.
And I think that's going to affect the Cowboys.
Okay.
Because him as an assistant coach, everyone's said the same type of thing. He's just so great in the coaching realm. I can see him being picked up by another side by...
It must have been bad, one, to get done in Townsville, being who he is, two, to be sacked for it. It must be pretty ordinary.
Also, it's incident related.
Unless there's more, unless it's a repeat, or there's more to it. Allegedly, we don't know.
Yeah. You'd have to... Yeah, you're assuming that either it's a really bad one or you didn't tell the club.
Yeah. So for them to sack straight away doesn't happen, especially for an assistant coach.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my guess is one of those two things, or it's happened to prior.
That's right. It's a repeat offence.
It's not got out.
Yeah. We don't know. Again, we're just speculating.
Yeah, definitely. But I think he gets picked up because everyone that he's around, like, they all say he's one of the biggest pests that's ever played the game, but
apparently a genius as well.
An absolute genius, yeah. They put up with him being a pest because of how good he is.
And has helped their attack a lot.
Yep.
Let's start there then. Let's get into 38-30. Cowboys over the Storm. And it was actually quite an entertaining match. But at the end of the day, I think I'd rather be on the Storm coming out of that match, having watched it, because I wouldn't say they're unlucky not to win, but they were in the game for a long time given they rested 10 blokes. And the Cowboys still conceded 30. And a lot of the talking points I thought were from some good stuff the Storm did.
Well, I'd argue that if Hughes or Grant plays, they win that.
Or Pappy, I even think about it, if Pappy doesn't
get injured. Stays on, because they lost, didn't they lose another back as well? Seve.
Yes.
Pappy played 14 minutes, Seve played 15.
He was injured,
yeah. So they really
and that was what opened the door essentially to Val carving up.
Yeah, so it was... I
thought they were a better team for a lot of this game.
It's just that Storm process of next man up, this is your job, this is how you're going to play. Like Grant Anderson starting at 7.
Yeah.
It didn't seem to phase them until the injuries started and everything had to be shuffled around. And yeah,
I agree. Did you see much of this, Craig?
No, I missed it because I was in bed for the 4 o'clock start that I had.
That's fair enough.
I was on Melbourne at the line.
Was it 12 or something?
It was 12 and a half.
Very good.
Yeah. Figured there was no way that, despite having all the outs, the Melbourne system, very much like Penrith, it just always seems to churn out at least a competitive side. There's never a true reserve grade Melbourne side.
I thought the 2 unknown forwards came this team were very good. Valipu and is it Lasardi? Yeah, Atavalu, Lasardi, both very good. One off the bench, one starting. I thought they had both came with tries actually. I know one did at the start. Yeah, both came with tries. They got through the work very well. They look like they're setting a nice base. Christian Walsh had a great game. And
Tyrone Wishart was amazing.
Tyrone Wishart was he has to be the most improved player in the comp.
If there was an award for it, he's got it by the length of the straight.
I cannot think of anyone else.
And it just goes to show that
I can think of others, but they're not that level.
And I get it's easier to do it at Melbourne, where you're in a winning culture, but it just goes to show sometimes being off the bench for a year or two and not just getting thrown straight in can be beneficial.
They were playing him under sufferance last year, basically having no other alternatives. And this year he is a legitimate first grader that's pulling his weight.
Yeah.
But that sufferance has caused him to be potentially selected in multiple positions. And that's it. He can play both halves, centre, wing, hooker. He walks into almost every other side because he can fill one of those 5 positions.
And in a comp where we have HIAs, we have such intensity, your 14 is so important that you can always go to market as a 14.
100%.
If someone like a Connor Watson now, I think values twice as much as it was when he left Newcastle. Especially Wishart, that you go through all the time. Your 14 is so important.
And especially, as you said, with the HIAs, a 14 that can play multiple positions can easily, in today's game, get 30 minutes
Yeah, and win games.
and win games.
And then every fourth week, you might have to play 70 minutes and do an A-grade job.
Exactly. So, yeah, I don't know what it's going to cost Melbourne to keep him, because I feel like there's going to be a few teams that are going to throw a fair bit of coin at him.
I've said before, if you're the Dragons, I reckon you almost have to try and get him. He's a Dragons junior.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's old man's legend.
Lions, I believe.
Try and get him back in almost as a Ben Hunt replacement if you can't get someone else ridiculous. That's where I'd be looking if I was there. What else I'm talking about from the Storm point of view? Munster was great. Munster was fantastic. And Fa'alongo is waiting to be a star. I don't know how many times
Every time he touched the ball,
he beat that first man almost every time. There were times when they had the set line for him, he still blew them off.
Nine tackle busts, 2 line breaks, 174 metres from 15 runs.
Yeah, he was absolutely incredible.
And you'd almost argue that they're more attacking with him in the side. So it's the defensive and the high balls and that side of thing that he has to improve on.
He's got a bit of the Reece Walsh about him.
I think he's more controlled than Reece. He doesn't throw
he still has that error in his game.
He's a run first fullback where Reece probably
throw that rainbow ball.
Look for the. And those errors, one of them he made 40 metres and they came from behind and knocked it.
Broke 6 tackles.
But there was a couple where he made 40 metres and held on.
Yeah.
Where he could have been tempted to throw that ball and didn't. He,
and that's where Reece probably tries the speculator.
Especially now, Pappy. And Pappy's one of my favourite. He's definitely the largest favourite player. That's why he's got a stupid haircut. But he's one of my favourite players, but he's just lost that. It feels like he's lost half a yard this season.
It feels like more than half a yard once you see Fa'alongo.
Well, 2 years ago, some of those breaks Pappy still makes, you wouldn't catch him now.
Yeah.
He's getting run down. And maybe a full off season, back to his best, who knows. But here, Pappy's future may lie. He's a fantastic fullback still, but maybe lies more in that halves role, doing his play there a little bit. But obviously, your 3 don't go into 2 when you've got the 2 best halves in the game anyway, arguably. But I thought across the board, they did a pretty sterling job, the Storm, but got overrun by the Cowboys. A couple of unlucky bounces, a couple of softish tries where they're gassed out in that back end of the game.
If the Cowboys are going to win games, though, from here to the, whenever it is they get knocked out, they're not going to be low-scoring games.
No.
Cowboys are definitely that side that we're just going to...
They have to score.
We're going to
have to score 38 to win a game.
Yeah, we're just going to outscore you.
And that doesn't work in finals.
No.
And particularly when you got a game like, I actually struggled to come up with too many players that had great games in this game. Cole Felt had some fantastic finishes. He had a really good game for his last game up there. Val was great, and I think he's kicked 30 straight or something.
It's something ridiculous.
18 or 19 straight. And hit him so sweetly when I thought he was gone at the start of the year. And defensively, he may still be, but to go play on the wing at St George, he'd be happy. Dearden was good, but the rest were just okay. I don't think I can rave about
well, considering who they were coming up against, my top 2 players were both Storm players, even though they lost.
I agree. Who were they?
Wishart and Fa'alongo.
Oh, I had Munster in the mix too.
There you
go. Anything else you want to touch on here, apart from saying, look, unfortunately, Cowboys a little bit, they're under sufferance in the finals?
We'll wait for the preview.
Look, I end up giving Val 3 by default because they did win, but I agree. I had Fa'alongo, Munster, and Wishart almost for my points.
Yeah.
That's our show.
It's your show. You do what you want. But
fuck it. What'd you do?
I had those 2. I had 2 and 3, and I was waiting for you to flip the coin.
Wishart
and Fa'alongo.
For 3 and 2?
Yep.
And Val 1?
That'll work.
All right, that'll do. Fine. It's our show. Come talk to us, Townsville Lions. My beer's nearly wet. Dry.
Beer's nearly wet.
Beer's nearly wet. 34-22, Manly over the Bulldogs. Another team that had the chance to cement a top 4 spot here. Didn't get the job done. Some really good attacking footy from both sides in this game. But what did... GT, did you see this?
Yeah, I watched this one.
What did you make of it?
Watching the first sort of 20 minutes, the Dogs were really on top. Mm-hmm. And I was quite surprised that they hadn't just blown the doors off and run away with it and had the game sewn up nice and early. Manly had the grind about them. They did not want to go away and were going to do whatever they could to sort of swing it back in their own favour.
Well, it was almost like once Lodge and Aloanak came on, they just went back to the middle and worked back off that. They sort of reset.
Lodge
there.
found the form of a few years ago
Yeah, he was very good.
before his ill-fated US trip.
Brown was good again. Brown was good again. And they just, as I said, they stopped the grind and just sort of switched it back a little bit and were able to change momentum. And it got a couple of penalties along the way, which did help. But and there was an early disallowed try in there as well, I think. Anyway, but yeah, Bulldogs did look very impressive to start, and as you said, wrestled back into it. And what else did you take from it?
I think Manly's performance, being that it was predominantly front row dominated, it was even more impressive the fact that Turbo was dead on his feet for 60 minutes of the game. You know, there was one injury followed by another, and he was finally taken out with about 20 to go. And being that the week before he was the sole contributor, it was really impressive to see them actually find a way to win without their number one.
Yeah.
Stat of the week, Bulldogs have only won 3 games against top 8 sides this year.
There you go.
So I've been probably one of their biggest fans, talking them up about their chances of a premiership title and their ability to run deep into the finals. But people carried on about the Sharks and how they've got an easy draw.
Yeah, we were so...
They've only won 3 games against sides that are currently in the top 8 as of this moment. One was the Sharks when they went through that bad period. Yep. One was the Roosters around Origin time. The other one was the Dolphins. They've lost every other game against the top 8 side this year.
Wow. And
it does help that the Dragons are currently out of the 8, because I think the Dragons, they beat twice. The Knights, who are 9th, they've beat, I think, once or twice. But as it stands...
And they smashed Brisbane,
who again, out of the 8. But yeah, so...
Only a month ago, that was a criticism of the Roosters.
Exactly.
That they hadn't beaten anybody.
Yeah. So they're...
What does that even... The more I think about this, what does that mean when... If no one in the top 8 can beat each other, does it not say much for the top 8?
It says that there are stand-away...
The stats for the minor premiership over the last 10 years show that the competition is just... It's pretty much between 3 sides.
Yeah, Roosters,
Melbourne.
Only 3 teams won the comp, haven't they?
No, if you're going back 10, the Sharks are still in there.
2016.
Yeah.
And I think there was one other side, but it's...
Chooks twice, Melbourne twice, Panthers 3.
Sharks and someone else.
Maybe Melbourne 3 times. Or Chooks 3 times. Didn't Chooks go bang, bang, missed, bang or something? Anyway, it's easy to find. We'll...
Yeah, so... I think that's what it shows. That we've been building up the Bulldogs without actually... We've been praising their performance without looking deep enough into the fact that they've beat teams that are below them, which is still great for the Bulldogs. They've been down the bottom for
absolutely,
years,
absolutely.
and it's still a great season for them. But when that end of season review comes, unless they win the comp, they'll look back and be like, we didn't beat anyone that was a genuine threat.
Yeah.
The fact is, we all had them. We all panned them at the start of the season in the predictions.
Yeah.
And there was no shortage of comments telling us.
We had improvement for them.
Yeah, but it was still no.
But it was not... They were no chance of making the finals. And really, if they win that game on the weekend, they're right on the edge of the...
Top 4.
The top 4. Again, waiting for the Roosters, who potentially lose this week. The Sharks don't know, that they've potentially cost themselves a top 4 game. But you look back and, wait, you've not really beat anyone above you.
In terms of this game, I thought, from the Bulldogs' point of view, their back 4 or 5 was fantastic again. Fox is since he came back from injury, he's having quite a great trot. Bronson Sherry's been a brilliant sign. Might be the underrated signing. I know everyone's going to rave about Crichton, who they do get back this week or next week. But Sherry's to pull him halfway out of obscurity has been fantastic. Connor Tracy over 200 run meters again, and they are getting Tupanua, who's been very good lately as well. I think you call this just, if nothing else, you call a season a success, and you go right next year. We fill in the gaps, I suppose.
Carraz's form seems to have dropped off. He's not getting as much.
He's
as
not a centre.
but he's also not.
Yeah.
He's not taking those runs like he was. He was averaging 20 runs a game. Now it's. I know he's been moved to centre, but it's just not quite. He doesn't have that impetus that he did earlier on in the year.
I think that if you look back over the last few weeks, he's had to play fullback once, and he was very good defensively, but didn't produce the numbers. Centre here, and I think his other game at centre was pretty quiet as well.
The last 2 weeks he's played centre.
So I'm not too stressed about him, but yeah, if you have him in Supercoach or similar, it hasn't been quite the numbers. Who are you repping from Manly? Luke Brooks, some amazing attacking plays along the way, and chimed in at first receiver.
I think GT mentioned it at the start, the props. Paseka ran for 178 and Brown ran for 188.
And you throw Olakuatu in, who was absolutely brilliant in this game.
But it's been one of our biggest things, mocking Manly.
Yeah.
They're back 5. We know what they can do. And like this Lehigh Hopewadi, he's going to be absolutely
superstar.
Saab unfortunately got injured, but
and
again,
probably Garrick's best game.
Garrick playing well, Tommy Talau playing well, Turbo doing what Turbo does. But we've always said, and it's similar to the Cowboys, if they're going to win, they're going to have to win 36-30 because their defence and their props just don't show up enough.
Yeah.
They showed up this week. And that's kind of what the worry always had been with the Bulldogs, and we'd mentioned that they're still a big prop short a few weeks ago. But Manly's props finally said, fuck it, let's do what props do and belt the shit out of a smaller opposition.
The problem with Manly's props is that they do this 4 times a year and they win those 4 games.
And it was,
and you don't see him.
I was always
Paseka's guilty of it.
This was the only tip I got wrong prior to the Sunday games, but you felt like it might come after that Tigers beating that they were going to have a performance in them to be like, no, we're.
Yeah, if you knew you're going to get this out of Paseka every week, he becomes a terrifying prospect.
He's a mountain of a man.
Yeah, he's enormous.
Who would want to stand in front of him?
We've seen it before where he doesn't back up.
Yeah.
That's it. So maybe the Tigers' loss was the wake-up call that they needed. I don't know. I think we'll know more this week. They're playing the Sharks.
It'll be interesting.
So, and the Sharks, who have a very good forward pack. So if they can back up this week, then you're like, well, could they be that side out from outside the 4 that could challenge? But if the Sharks just run over the top of them, you're like, there it is again, that 1 week performance and back to square one.
Conversely, if they smash Sharks, all of a sudden you're very worried about Sharks.
I don't see them smashing Sharks because Turbo's not there.
That's true.
If I'm a Manly fan, all I want to see this week is just a tight game where my forwards are close to dominating, if not. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like they could lose this week, they're not going to fall out. They're in 7th no matter what. I think if they win, they can sneak into.
Yeah, I've got the whole list for the previous show.
Yeah, but if you're a Manly fan, you just want your forward. You want both props again hitting 150 metres this week, regardless of the result.
And Lodge hit 140 in half hour.
So it'll be.
I actually don't think the result really plays too much into it. I think it's how it's played because Manly and Cronulla are both in the same vein that the floor is so very low. If they play a bad game, it is an atrocious game.
Yeah.
So their best and worst is so far apart.
Yes. Yeah. Like the Sharks can beat anybody in the comp, but they can also lose to anybody in the comp.
Yeah.
And Manly is very much the same.
Well, Manly have lost to both the Spoon Bowl participants.
Yeah.
Perfect example.
And Cronulla's lost to the Tigers.
Lovely.
Correct. So Manly. We just said that.
Yep.
All right. Let's look at the front row then for some points for the Daggy Amps. Danaan, who are you thinking?
They also lost to the Eels. They've both lost to the Spoon Bowl.
Oh, we did lose to them too. Spoon Bowl Mark 2.
I don't know, to be honest. I had both the props potentially there. I had Turbo potentially there. I had Brooks. I was hoping you were going to lead me into the exact numbers.
I actually went towards Brooks, Marnie, and you made a better case for this front row than I had Olakuatu 1, but I would be happy for Lodge or Paseka, I suppose. That's rough.
Marnie scored 2 backup tries that he done nothing for.
He still made 50 tackles.
And he missed 10% of them.
True.
I didn't have Marnie in my...
No, let's brush him then. What about Sherry would be the other one I'd mention.
I had Hopewadi for 1.
Well, Hopewadi was...
Well, end of the day, Manly did win, so fuck the Bulldogs. Okay. Brooks.
Like, if I had a Bulldog player, it would definitely be Bronson.
Brooks, Olakau'atu, and either Hopewade. Oh, you could mention Garrick too. Very good here.
That's what I mean. But, yeah, Bronson did play very well in 254 metres.
Oh.
If you were going to have a dog, it would be him. But we've been bagging out the Manly props for so long. I just thought that they've both performed.
Okay,
they probably deserve.
Let's go 3 to Brooks, 2 to Paseka, and 1 to Sherry. How's that work for you?
That'll work. It's not going to change the.
It won't change anything ultimately. But,
Yep.
It's nice they're getting the board.
Yep.
And we'll have a quick break.
That's why she dropped me off. She's like, "Oh, do you want to have a drink?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure."
It's all on there. But anyway, 34 to 12. South Panthers over South. Let's read through some of these.
She's a good lady.
God damn, the South. This should have been more to Penrith, but that South's defence was abysmal at times.
I think it would have been more, but like that Toto no try and just the
There
little.
was no try, and there was the other. That was the obstruction. There was one in the back, second half that were given up that they missed as well. It probably realistically they could have won by 50 here.
I don't know how you stop it. I'd love, players like that are taking the dive, just 5 minutes in bins. Let's bring it back.
Yeah.
It was so clearly a dive. He was falling before he touched the Panthers player.
There's no point bringing it back if they're going to give the penalty anyway.
And that's what I'm like. They need smarter heads in the bunker to be like, players dove, 5 in the bin.
Yeah.
And then that will stop the dive moving forward.
It's the same as if you stay down, it should be mandatory HIA.
100% it should be.
It'll stop people staying down in a heartbeat.
100%.
Every winger coming out of the back half won't be getting up holding their face. I'll give you a tip. Anyway, the South's defensive. I don't even know what the defensive structure was. How many times did Yo or someone else just waltz through the middle, either get dragged down the line and they scored next tackle? The outside backs, they've been awful all year. They were awful again.
South are lucky that the Tigers and Eels have thrown 3 wins away at least this year, because they just.
I know they're missing players, but I can't say the worst team in the comp, but this was a very bad performance.
I'd argue that they are. I'd say if Eels and Tigers played South this week for the Spoon Bowl, they would both be starting favourites.
It wouldn't have been close.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be close. And, Tigers beat them a couple of weeks back. So those outside backs, and I know they're missing a few. I know, Campbell Graham and whoever else next year, but I think there's a bigger rebuild than people want to admit at South. I think Bennett come in and fix everything. That said, they've got one in Tyrone Munro. Emotional day for him. Scored a double, but he's got something about him. I think he had a spruik at the start. He's been in it for a while as well. But he, pinched a couple very, very quick. But honestly, Penrith just went through the motions to do what they had to do, and the best players were the best players. Yo was phenomenal again. Just doing what he had to do, give him plenty of time and space. Lawler was good. Bizza had an okay game. Their outside backs are all more than good. So, but what do you say when they're up against a very average team? Do you see much of this that I need to add to?
It was you've pretty much nailed it.
Do you see this?
No, I didn't see a second of this one.
Panthers, it was a couple of different calls, and they potentially just whitewash the Rabbits in this game. Very, great for Tyrone with the week that he had. But South, you can't say they've given up. You can never say a professional rugby league player has given up. But it's those effort areas where they just don't put the effort in.
Yeah.
And they've just stopped doing those.
One of the tries
on
the left edge, one of the players was running away from the tackle.
Yeah.
I can't think who it was.
Like, if you're a rugby league player, you're not taking soft run-ups.
No.
You're not going into a tackle to not make the tackle. So it's not that part of the game. It's all the extras that make the Panthers and the Storms and those top sides the better sides.
Yeah.
It's those effort areas that South have just stopped.
And there was some quite good scramble from a couple of players that saved some issues, but by and large, I don't know. I couldn't tell you what the defensive structure is supposed to be, and whatever it is not working. It's as simple as I say, but if they haven't got a foot in the plane already, they're pretty close to it.
Yep.
So what else we take from this apart from good return from Alamode? I guess they'll be happy to have him back. Taruva back in first grade, got a double. Everyone did what they had to do. I thought.
I think the biggest talking point is Edwards. You can see that he's not playing fit.
Yeah, nowhere near. No.
So if I'm the Panthers, I don't play him this week. And if you finish top 2, I probably don't play in the first week of the finals.
Okay. Who stands in for him? Oh, Laurie. You've got Laurie up the sleeve.
You've got Laurie up your sleeve.
No, it'd be Laurie. If not, Tarira can, but he's on the nose there.
Taruva's on the nose. Same with the guy that we just signed who filled in for him perfectly a few weeks back against Newcastle.
Yeah.
Like the thing is, this week doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They should win. Next week, they're versing either the Sharks, who they're going to go in favourite no matter who the fullback is, with Cleary coming back.
Yep.
Or they're going to be playing a depleted Roosters side who they could use their 5th string fullback and should be beating. So it's a chance to rest him for 2. If they do win that game, and this would be the only issue, he then doesn't play the week after because they're off, and then he's not a game for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That would be the only potential risk. Do they not want him to play for 3 weeks? But depending on how injured he is, he needs to not play for 3 weeks. I know he played when they beat us in the grand final. He played with the broken foot and that, but this seems to be affecting him more now than what he was affected back then.
Yeah, clearly. What else we take apart from this is that they're going to finish second. They towed up a team that were pretty ordinary. Yo was fantastic. I went 3, Yo 2, Luai 1. Take your pick. Taruva or Fish. Fish has had a very, very good... They were easing him here, but he's been very good. Yeah, whatever.
Fish. We always love when a big guy makes a break.
Okay. And puts in a grubber and scores the first try, so we'll give it to him for 1. Then we got to 44-40. The record first grade score for a record highest first grade score in a losing effort
Yep.
from the Dragons. At what point did you think Para going to blow this?
When my mate messaged me saying, how good is this? Which was about the 55th minute. I'm like, why did you do that? And I'm just like, why? It was the same. It's the same as what they done against Penrith. It was they've done it 3 or 4 times this year. The only difference is they actually had 40 on the board this time and not just the mid-30s.
Yeah.
They stopped playing.
Yes,
with
literally.
15 minutes
Just
to go.
pick it up a little bit for me, don't it?
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, they stopped playing with 15 minutes to go. They're just like, we've got this, we've won. And I don't know whether it's I don't know if it's a fitness thing or they just start looking towards next week. But they just stopped.
They didn't really touch the ball in the last 15 minutes.
It's because they decided not to fucking tackle for the last 15 minutes. If you don't tackle, you don't get the ball back.
Same against Brisbane. They did the same thing.
Yep.
Actually, it was the other game. But yeah, it's pretty ordinary. But for the first 60, you've got to say we're always pretty critical of Makasiva, but when he wants to be, he's a beast. He had probably his best game, or this year definitely, but maybe in a couple of years.
I was just disappointed. I said my bet of the week was the 4 wingers to score in that game. There was...
And you didn't take it?
No, I took it. There was 200-odd tries and Ravalawa didn't score.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
He's getting owned a little bit. But Siva was fantastic. Gutho was great again. I think he led the run meters. He finished close.
Live news, guys. NRL denies Rabbitoh's application regarding Latrell Mitchell ban.
Oh, wow. Okay, there you go. They led the way. Dylan Brown, very, very good again. But allowed, and again, they were all allowed to be. Like Dragons, let's not miss society.
I think the Dragons went into this game...
run meters.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the Dragons went into the game thinking they were going to win.
2 of them were 50-meter tries. Yeah.
Dragons just went in
Yeah.
thinking this will be an easy knockover, and they were already thinking ahead to this week's game, and it's now cost them a final spot most likely.
Oh, Flano doesn't take loss as well, does he?
No.
He was not a happy chappy. Isn't it funny? I've seen almost nothing written about it. If Benji Marshall had walked out of a press conference like he did, it'd have been all over 360 for 3 days and the Daily Telegraph. But he literally refused to have a press conference, and it's been barely mentioned since. Yeah. Good to have mates, I suppose. But that was great. So I think he did say something like, well, I guess I've got to look to A-grade park A-grade for better players now or something. So he wasn't happy. And I don't blame him. What you take from this game is that the Dragons have overperformed, I think, up until the last month to get to where they've got to. This was realistically probably a clash of 2 of the bottom 4 teams.
It was another game that, as I mentioned a few weeks ago, like if Moses plays this, we put 60 on him, and they don't get that close.
And Arcee missed, I think, 5 kick. I think he 4 from 9.
Yeah,
So it's
like,
still,
4 from 9.
it could have been 60 anyway.
yeah. So it's just another game that
50.
proves how much Moses is worth to that side, because they almost lost because he's not there to control it.
Yeah.
And this is why people like, oh, he's not $1 million player. He's not this. Well, in the current game, he is, because he ices that one comfortably. As I said, if not blows them away more. And it's half a dozen games this year that they would have. I think they win because they were able to hold on, because they've got a controlling 7 that has a good kicking game.
Even something as simple as kicking a field goal at, to put you 17 ahead rather than 16 or something, or
Yeah.
19 instead of 18, it's just another psychological tick. Hunt put in a few kicks for those late tries. He had involvements there, but the game was done and dusted. As you said, you mentioned Sloan's run meters. Anything else you want to talk about it? Or we'll move on again.
Just move on.
The last 10 minutes, 11 minutes, was just
I do love
insane.
rugby and chaos, so it was, yeah.
It was chaos, and absolutely everything the Dragons touched was golden.
Yeah.
Every bounce of the ball went their way.
And that's what pissed me off, because the centre had swapped with Ravalawa, and they put that grubber in across field. I'm thinking, this is the try. This is the try for the multi. And then you see who's got it. It's like, well, what the fuck are you doing in the centre's Ravalawa?
Yeah.
But I think it was the second last try to Fee guy that was chipped, bounced straight up into his lap right before the dead ball line. Like, you couldn't do that if you tried.
No.
It was just pure luck.
Yeah.
But 28 points in 10 minutes on the dot, it was just insanity.
If there was 2 more minutes, they win that game.
Talking to a Para fan
Absolutely.
going, it's 44 to 12. You've got this sorted. And 10 minutes later, it's almost all come apart. It was brilliant to watch. Wasn't really high quality. It was just Hunt, Sloan,
It
just
reminded
doing
me-
their own things.
Yeah.
And
It reminded
absolute
me of the old
chaos.
under-20s comp.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Agree.
The old Toyota Cup.
Yeah.
You giving 3 to Gutho, 2 to Sevo, or are you flipping them? What do you want to do?
Oh, fuck it. No one deserves points.
Dylan Brown had a hell of a
Dylan,
game.
Dow-
too.
yeah,
He
Brown
did
played
too.
well.
Yeah, the 3. Make it up if you want.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, you
Well,
can't
Ben
really
Hunt ended up with like 8 tries.
you
or something.
can't really
What was the go there?
you can't really give a Dragons player a point, because they done nothing until the
It
Eels
was
swapped off.
Yes, it was 44-12 with 10 to go.
Yeah.
So how do you? I don't think you can justify that. Honourable mention, Ben Hunt for a couple of those kicks, as you said.
Lomax played fairly well.
He did have a good
He-
game. 3
he did
Sevo,
brilliant.
2 Brown, 1 Gutho.
That'll
There you
work.
go. And then we get to the Broncos. And maybe we've missed the point with the Broncos in that they were awful for a bit. They won like 1 game where they ran down Para. And then we all just assumed they were back. Well, some of us did. They were awful here as well. Like that, they're not in a good space. The Dolphins are fantastic, but Herbie Farnworth just decided that he was Herbie Farnworth tonight, and he had one of his best games in NRL, which has been a very good NRL career. He tore them up. He was out to what you didn't play him.
No, Herbie and Hammer were the two that Barney had that cost me.
Oh, right, yeah. What
ouch.
did they score? I haven't.
Herbie got 170 odd,
Yeah.
and Hammer
Fucked
got
up.
about 110.
They moved him in the centres. Those edges were scintillating. They played Trey Fuller, who I questioned actually on the preview why they weren't, and blew the Broncos off the park. And they had very little answer. And this is another team where like their defensive structures, particularly on those edges, aren't good. They're just not working. We talked about Broncos chaos when they were going through that bad patch, being frantic, I should say. I think is the word I used. And apart from Pat Carrigan, how can you really wrap anyone here on this Broncos side?
They've gone from 16 minutes away from being premiers to missing the 8.
To having grave concerns where they sit. Next year.
So Kevy's got the full support of the board. So that's come out. They've missed Walsh for parts. They've missed Haas for parts.
Miss Reynolds for parts.
They've missed Reynolds for a big
Ezra
chunk.
Mam.
But I think it's prior to that, and this is similar to what happened with Parramatta. They've missed the signings that they lost. So Herbie, Flegler, who else was there out of that Premier, like the side that lost it?
There's someone who went to Fletcher. No, they picked up Fletcher Baker. There's someone else that went.
Yeah, so they've lost players from that grand final side that were very underrated, and they don't realise how much.
I think Flegler was a massive loss.
And that's,
well, obviously Herbie.
yeah. And I don't think that's been spoken about enough. And it probably doesn't get spoken about because Penrith have been losing players every year since they've won the comp.
Yeah.
But the difference is Penrith have got somebody ready to come in for whoever they lose.
That nursery is incredible.
Exactly.
The thing is
where the Broncos had no one to replace. Well, it's not that it's no one. It's just that the quality is such a drop-off.
The other thing that Penrith and Melbourne do is they get first-grade games. We talked about Wishart. They get 25, 30 first-grade games in a bloke before anyone realises.
Yeah.
So by the time they have to do it, they're there. Whereas in this case, that said, this team isn't inexperienced. But you see it with the bottom teams. All of a sudden, Para have to play four outside backs that never played together before.
Yep.
All at once, and chaos ensues. But I just think Reynolds will be like, is he going to play one more year? There's already friction there. It's like he said he has.
With how Reynolds plays, injury-wise, I'd be surprised if he gets more.
But you're
than
now
15.
at a stage where you can't. If you're on a rebuild, you can't afford to have a part-time halfback. Penrith can because they're Penrith.
Yeah.
And Manly, to an extent, they accept what they accept with Tommy, and Souths have been, but you don't win comps that way.
No.
And it's an issue.
And I don't see Brisbane pushing for the 8 next year, as it currently stands.
No. I will be more excited about other teams in that bottom.
I'm glad the Dolphins at least are still in with the fight for the top 8.
I'm happy for it. Well, I hope they beat Newcastle, and I hope they do make it.
Yep.
Ollie's bold prediction will still be in
5 at Warwick Farm, by the way. We will.
He tells us with 2 minutes to go.
That's plenty of time.
Wait, isn't it a maiden? Didn't you say
I
don't
like
touch
the
the
race.
maiden? Yeah,
There's
fuck it.
There's too many Waller trialers
No.
that I don't like. I might have something
That race
on,
too.
Might have something on Great White Shark there at 20s, and Johnny the Kid will lead, I think, which suits. They're the two that I might, but I don't like this race at all. And we'll move on to Herbie, absolutely brilliant. Nearly 300 run meters and tore them apart. Jake Averillo, a great game. Hammer, a great game. And they just carved up the outside backs. Did what they had to do. Max Plath, again, got through his usual work. Now they're watching this.
I wanted to see who the jockey was.
It's Nash.
Of course, it's Nash.
Just carving up the back. Let's roll through. 3 points to Herbie. We'll talk more about the Dolphins in the preview. 2 to Hammer, and where do you want to go next?
I've already got them logged in.
Let's go Averillo 1.
That'll work.
Perfect. And then we get to the Warriors. Sometimes in sport, 30 to 28 over the Sharks. Sometimes in sport, like the scripts are better than a lot of movies. And for John Johnson to lead a 22-point comeback, and his last touch in the National Rugby League is a match-winning try that was absolutely brilliant. So, like I said, sometimes the sport plays out better than it does in fiction. That said, Gregory, how are you after this game?
I was in a state, but it had nothing to do with the footy.
Oh, yeah, we'll probably keep that off air. But
I was up watching a concert in Newcastle, so I saw none of this game, and I'm actually pretty glad that I didn't.
you see this?
I only saw bits and pieces, and the bits and pieces I saw was just Sean Johnson highlights. It was like I watched a Sean Johnson highlight reel.
Yes, it was. Very much
Whenever I was cooking at the time, so I missed the majority, and then cooking and dinner. But
it was one of those games where Sharks just went through the motions and looked great, and getting to 22.
Yep.
I was going to get both your opinions on Nico, but we might hold that off a little bit. But went through the motions, got did the right things. Teague Wharton's got a nice try, did what you'd expect exactly Sharks to do, and then they came at half time, the Warriors, and Sean Johnson had a smile on his face. He was loving life. I think he just thought there's nothing to lose here, and just had a hand in absolutely everything. And Sharks, for a big period, had no answers. Controlled this game.
The era. So what the parts that I did see in a bit length. Yeah. So the Eero sin bin was a pretty big play. That was
what started it all. Yes.
Yeah. So they'd scored 2 just prior, and then just through that momentum with him then going off, they scored another 2, and And that's the other thing. It was 6 tries to 5. So even though it was only 2 points difference, it was only due to the goal kicking that it was so close in the end.
Yes.
Chooks, yeah. Again, I didn't see the whole game, but from what I saw in that second half, it was very Shark dominant.
There was a 20-minute spurt, and as you said, a couple with...
They pretty much scored five of their tries were in the last half an hour.
Yes. So they ran them down. I think they did exactly the same thing last year. Was it last year they ran down a 20-point lead against in the corresponding game? Tane to a peak. I think the conversation needs to be had about him legitimately starting at 1 next year and Chance and Roger in the centres. I think it sets them up better. They get Metcalf and Tamari. Metcalf was very good again.
Adden ran for over 200 metres.
Yes.
And again, this was that part where it's...
You put Adden in the other team, which they're going to next year. You're a much happier person.
There was a lot
Exactly.
being made about him playing his future club in his last game for the Warriors.
And that's part of the reason why I tipped the Warriors. Just knowing it was their last game, it was Johnson's last game, it was Adden's last game. There was multiple sides to it, and the fact that the Sharks are still, they've still got more to play for this year. Where the Warriors, this was it. This was their be all and end all. And after the poor performance the week prior, I didn't think they'd want to be sending Sean Johnson off a loser.
No. The whole feeling around the whole Johnson thing was really cool. Are you panicking come finals time now?
I'm expecting the same thing that I always do from them. They're normally good enough to make the finals, but their floor is just so low, unfortunately, that they always seem to trip over themselves and they're out in straight sets.
They found someone in Stone Street. He seems a handy player. Very good finisher.
He's come really well.
Iro's been very good. I know he got binned here, but has been very good. You get from the rest of them.
Is he potentially the Dally M Rookie of the Year?
Iro? Potentially, yeah. It would be an absolute...
Because
Galvin in a landslide. If he had
Galvin would have had it if not for the suspension.
feel for that.
So
Yeah.
I
Good
think,
shout.
I think he's going to be up there.
Yeah.
He looks like a great
Because
talent.
Sanders has disappeared off a cliff. Talangi.
Potentially,
Hasn't played enough.
that would be.
But he's got the hype around him. I don't know. Does it work on purely points? Or do they just pick someone?
I don't know.
I don't think he's played enough to actually have cemented that comparative to Iro who's played
And
the
they've not-
entire year.
That's it. Ero's played 20 plus games,
Max Plath played last year
suspended.
and suspended. Trying to think who else. Katoa fell off a cliff. Katoa played all last year anyway.
Yeah.
Disregard.
Last
So
year.
Ero.
Hero's a good shout.
Hero,
Hero's a
Rookie of
good
the
shout.
Year.
I don't know how they, like I said, whether it's just they pick those other awards. I don't know.
Unsure as well.
I don't know. Good, fair enough shout because he has been great. Stone Street's been great. Dan Atkinson's been good. They've found some talent here. But obviously you're not optimistic going out of this.
No, not overly. And Nico is unfortunately such... I know you said you were going to save it, but he's such a confidence player, and his confidence just doesn't seem to be there.
He
at
had
the
a try
moment.
disallowed, by the way. They
Okay.
could have won this game.
When things start to go wrong for Nico, he does not have great short-term memory loss. Like a lot
It's
of
a
the greats.
snowball effect, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah,
for Nico?
it does feel
when
like
something goes
yeah.
wrong, a lot seems to go wrong, and he just drops his head.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's stopping him from being amongst the elite. He's super coach gold, but in terms of actually on the field, he really struggles when anything starts to go against him. It's all downhill from there.
And
Does his future lay in harms? Or
I don't
does
think
he
he's
go
a,
back to one?
so I don't think he's a
I
7.
think he's a better fullback.
now do you have the chat with Atkinson, Trindle and him? Maybe really you're going to miss William Kennedy?
I mean, he is the best fullback in the club.
I don't think he would
Well,
be.
that's
If
fair.
He
Nico-
would have been if Tracy was still there too.
Definitely not.
That's because the bloke that should be playing 1 is playing 7.
But the thing with Nico in that position is he didn't do it throughout the juniors, where the 7s have had to learn
All the way through, that's right.
their trade the whole way through.
Yeah.
It's how often do you see a 7? I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
would be the only one, a
Hughes and
manufactured
Cronk?
7.
Cronk wasn't a 7 either.
Yeah.
So the two that Bellamy brought in, in the last 20 years. Who else?
Brad Fittler was a centre, but that's a whole different.
But he went 5'8", not a
true,
half.
not a half.
And look, Nico, again, a Craig Bellamy prodigy. They've tried putting into 7, but
I don't know where Wishart played when he was a kid, but yeah.
I did ref him as a junior. I just can't remember.
That when both your legs worked?
Yeah, they did. Yeah. No, I don't know.
No, he still didn't work then?
Yeah, I'd already had an ACL by then. But name me another 7 apart from the 2 that Bellamy continued coaching that have not been a 7 when they were a junior.
And even Munster, I think, was a fullback.
He was.
So, yeah, he's the only one.
That's what I mean. It is something that they need to be taught from such a young age.
Yeah, to have a feel for the game.
To have a feel, and if, when those, when shit happens, to not just put the head down and...
Yep.
Because that's the thing, as a fullback, you can put the head down and be like, shit, I've just cost us a try, but then your team, your 7...
Well, Reece Welsh is classic for it. You'll do something
Yeah.
completely dumb, but the next set he'll try the same thing, it'll come off and off
He
you go.
completely forgets about
Exactly, because
And
it's
then you
not...
gotta do it,
The pressure's not on him as such. It's, if everyone else is doing their job, I can fuck up.
Yeah.
Whereas a 7, it's...
Especially because he actually, in a way, got to fly under the radar because this was so much about Sean Johnson and so much about his return was a bit... Yes, please. under the radar. Let's move on from this. We've got a preview to get to as well. And I want to have some beers and watch the races and talk some other stuff. The 3 points Johnson, 2 Toe Peaky, and 1 to...
Yeah, AFB into that.
AFB.
All 3. I don't know if all 3... Yeah, who cares? Yep, let's go with that.
AFB, it's already in.
All 3 is harsh on the Sharks, but at least they get to play finals.
They lost, fuck 'em.
36-14, they spent at least 30 seconds on this game. Titans are pretty poor.
That's about how long I watched the game for.
Father's Day was tough times. the Knights have something in Fletcher Sharp. He's a gun. Ponga did exactly what you'd expect to do if given enough time and space. Bradman Best was good. Gay Guy, very good again. Outside backs did the job.
I missed the start of the game. I started watching when Ponga scored the first try, and by the time he scored the second, I turned it off. I'm like, they're running away with this. I'm going to enjoy the afternoon with my kids.
Yeah, I did. It felt very much like one of those games.
It was just...
Dylan Lucas, Leo Thompson were both good as well for the Knights. For the Titans, anyone who want to talk about usual suspects, Carl Pereira, Jojo Fafita did run for nearly 300 run metres, and Bo Fermor in the centres, outstanding.
253 metres to Firma.
Yeah, he's had a great season and slightly...
I still think he was unlucky to not make Origin.
Didn't it work out his New South Welsh? No, that was Aitken.
Yeah,
Aitken, sorry.
Yep.
They're the same person.
They are in Supercoach.
Exactly. So, let's go. Fucking hell. 3 to Sharp, 2 to Ponga, 1 to Bo. There we go. That's a world record review for us. And then we get to, because I want to spend a little bit more time on this and reboot for the preview now. 14-12, the Raiders over the Roosters. And I thought, again, that the Raiders, I'm going to say this once, the refs did their absolute best to get the Roosters home in this game. I thought there was some poor officiating in that second half, and they tried to drag the Chooks kicking and screaming. And admittedly, they lost 3 very, very good players in the first half, but the Raiders out-muscled them, they out-enthused them, and they had them pinned on their line with not long to go.
It was a similar win, though, to the Panthers
game,
where it was like 5 or 6 to 2 in the line breaks again. It was just that, it was that same feeling of the Raiders defensively just didn't give up.
Yeah.
But I think the injuries played their toll in this one.
I think so.
The fact
they
it
lost
was
a bit their way.
Walker.
They lost any control. Yeah, that's right. They lost a lot of controls. That. But when it came to physical push game to shove, Raiders did the job there and out-muscled them, I thought.
Yeah. Elliot Whitehead, no idea what he was thinking when he tried to kick the ball from Angus.
Yeah. That was maybe
did you see the Instagram post that he made?
Yeah. Get him off the field.
Yeah. That old English. Yeah, that was absolutely brilliant. What do you say about Raiders? The players themselves have said, this is what we know we can produce.
Yeah.
Just why haven't we been doing it? We know we can do this.
Correct.
I think that hurts the most when you're a side like that it's going to miss the 8 by, a win or 2. You've just beat second and third on the table. Thinking, well, why did we lose to, 9th, 10th and 12th throughout the year?
Yeah.
Where performances like this against those type of sides, you should win by 20.
Yeah. The best prep you give the Raiders team is they do get physical and do get down and dirty when they need to. I've called them the gatekeeper for 4 years. Raiders fans don't like it, but it showed they are. I think it just, they are.
And that's why
teams have to beat them to beat them.
They're a threat if they make the finals because of that. Because they get down and dirty.
They're a scarier finals team.
Yeah, because the whistle goes away.
Yeah.
And they don't mind getting down and dirty.
They're a scarier finals team than I reckon 3 of the teams currently in the finals.
100%.
And that's easy to say. Thanks, mate. After they've just beaten the second and third team. But, I've always said it. If they were 8th and you were the Bulldogs, you'd be a bit nervous because you have to get in and scrap and fight and actually and win an 18-16 game, I think.
100%. And exactly like that, the stats will be in your favour, but they could still pull off the win.
Hudson Young was great. The forwards are all great. The usual suspects all stood up here. Whitehead was good despite his 2 sin bins. At the time he was on the field was good. Young was good. Tarpanay went looking for some aggro in between. Savage, scary at times. Hopper-Whitehead's come back in good order. Yeah, they all did their job. That said, Chooks, Teddy was easily the best of them again and outstatted them. Another game they outstatted them but just couldn't get the job done.
Exactly, as you just said, Dan, the stats can be one way, but the result's another. I'm just looking through the stats now, and they are all well and truly in favour of the Roosters. 6 line breaks to 2, almost double tackle breaks, set distance, return meters, everything in the Roosters' favour.
It just goes to show how much losing a 7 in the game costs.
Agreed, yeah.
Where almost any other position, if you lose a player in almost any other position in a game, you can cover it to an extent.
Yeah.
Centres are probably arguably the second worst to lose because unless you've got one on the bench, you've got to move your second rower.
Yeah, and then they get isolated so often in one game. Yeah.
But you can lose a 5'8" and it'll be fine. You can move somebody into 5'8". You lose a hooker, again, there's normally some type of your lock or somebody can go in and then your forward rotation just has to move a little. The second you lose your half, though, the half just controls everything. And especially in a side like the Roosters where Walker has been controlling absolutely everything.
He's been so good all year.
Yeah. Once you lose a player of that quality, with that much purpose in the side, it's...
What are we thinking about Keary? He just kind of seems to exist the majority of the time.
Keary's a 5'8". The only game he ever played halfback was when Cronk had a broken shoulder and Cronk was coaching him.
Yeah.
That's the...
He really hasn't done a lot.
He's just one of those 5'8s that is just a 5'8.
Yeah.
Dylan Brown's another... He's just... The running halves, like a running 5'8", cannot be a halfback because it's just not in their game.
The irony is it's Luke Brooks is too, but he was never allowed to be at the Tigers. I think he's seen what
he's
he can
a
do.
5'8".
Absolutely.
Yep. And the Luke Keary could play for any top side as long as he had a good 7 inside him and continue doing what he does because he's got no... There's no need for him to control. He just it's eyes up footy and lets him do what he can do best.
Yeah. Even that last play of the game was, forward and back, and then he said eyes up footy, kick for the corner for Tupou, and nearly came off.
Exactly.
Might need to practice his conversions a little bit.
Yeah.
That kick to tie the game was pretty atrocious.
Stats-wise, like a lot of the Roosters did their job. Manu, another one, as we've touched on. Let's wrap up this review with... we're going to give 3 to you. That's a good question.
3, Elliot Whitehead, just for the Instagram post.
I think Teddy
Get him off the field!
all right, Teddy gets 2. There'll be some angry fans watching this. Teddy gets 2 because that point probably will count. I don't think he's in doubt for not winning fullback of the year. But and 1 to Hudson. Let me think.
Who'd you give 3 to?
Actually, Morgan Smithies.
I was going to say Morgan. Morgan
50
had
tackles. It was a very good game.
Near on 100 metres, 50-odd tackles.
Let's go 3 to Smithies, 2 to Teddy, and one to Whitehead honorarily.
Yep. He
Probably
deserves it.
fairer.
Good way to finish his NRL
Alright,
career.
Let's wrap this up with, and before we do our preview.
And 2 points to the Tigers to make the spoon bowl.
2
Real
points
interesting.
to the Tigers. And any salute, slaps, or otherwise you want to mention? South's defence gets a pot plant for me. And
What are the options again? Salute, slap, and what?
Pot plant.
pot plant of the week.
Salute Johnson. It's got to be. Sean Johnson.
Oh, yeah, let's all salute Sean Johnson.
Yeah, well
What
done.
a fantastic finish. Pot plant of the week, Souths, and I'm going to slap the Broncos because they need a lot of help.
Yeah,
up
I was
there.
going to slap the Broncos.
Yes. Broncos.
Very good. Thank you, guys.
Pot plant. Who's your pot plants, though?
Souths.
South.
Yeah, they were.
All of
There's
them.
someone I want to single out, and I can't remember who it was. Anyway, all of them. Their defensive line was
I'll
embarrassingly
pot
bad.
plant the Eels for the last 10 minutes because that's literally what
That's
they
fair.
were.
Yep, no, that's fair.
They were pot plants for the last 10 minutes of that game.
Cool. We're going to do a separate preview show now. See you guys.